Okay, guys. Now, yesterday's lab was a good day's work. I think it was pretty intense, in what must be already a fairly intense week for you. But I was keen for you to make a start fairly quickly on making pages rather than spending too much time on the theory. And I think you'll agree that it's quite satisfying actually to be able to do a little bit of code and actually see something there, to start making stuff straight away. You know, so that's why we went quite fast. What we're going to look at today now is how to include an image in your web page. And this page here has some images.
We did it already.
Did you yesterday?
Yeah, 2 days ago.
We haven't had to yesterday.
No. Maybe you were in the wrong group or something. This is the 4th class for this group, and it's the 3rd lab. So I would have seen you yesterday in a computer room for the first time. Yeah. It's okay to be enthusiastic and to go to all the classes. That's okay. But I think maybe you've gone twice now to this class. Maybe that's what happened. Okay? So this is the code for an image tag. Let's put that up higher. So we have IMG, which is short for image, and SRC equals double quotes, and then in there we have the name of the image file. Okay? So that'll typically be a .jpg, or it could be a .jpeg, it could be a PNG, or a .gif, could be any one of those things. Most likely going to be a JPEG, we call it. So that's the file name. I'll talk a bit more about that part in a minute. Then we also have the width and the height and the alt attribute. The width and the height, you put the values in there, and that's the size the image is going to appear on the page in pixels. I'll talk about that in a second too. And the alt attribute is text that will appear in place of the image under certain circumstances. So a long time ago, when the internet was very, very slow, if you had a slow connection, you could say, well, when I go to look at web pages, I don't want to bother downloading the images, okay? I just want the text. And if you didn't download the image, you would see where the image would have been. You would see the text that appears in the alt tag, in the alt attribute. And then if you wanted the image, you could click on where it would have gone and it would download it. So its origins are that long ago, when the internet was very, very slow and you didn't want to download everything. When the internet got a bit faster, if you were downloading the image, you would see the alt tag in the place of where the image would have gone while it was downloading. When we go to a web page now, it's just ding, 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 boom, it's all there instantly. And we don't really have any concept of stuff downloading. Do you know what I mean? A web page is just there. It's so fast. So nowadays, the alt tag wouldn't be such a big deal. The reason we include the alt tag now is that some of the viewers of the web page might have some special requirements, and this would make things easier for them. So if someone doesn't see very well, for example, they might use a program that reads out the contents of a web page. A text-to-speech converter, for example. So a person using a program like that, the software would have no way of describing the picture. So while text-to-speech software can convert from text to speech, if you give it a picture of a soldier, it's just pixels. It can't analyze it and say, you know, that's a guy in a blue hat. All it can do is tell you what the person coding the page put in for the alt attribute. So when you're putting in your alt attribute there, think of a blind person who can't see what the picture is and put a description in there that would be appropriate in that circumstance. It may also be useful for search engines and people indexing your page to give them a hint as to what the image or what the page is about. Now you notice that the image tag doesn't have a partner, it doesn't occur in begin-end pairs. So at the end we have that slash there as well. So for an image tag to be complete, we need ing space the source attribute, the width, the height, the alt, and that slash. All of those things need to be there for it to be correct. Now, I'm going to talk a bit now about the source. Just as when you were putting in a link from one web page to another, if you're on page 1 and you put a link to page 2.html, the browser will look for page 2 in the same place wherever page 1 is. But alternatively in a href, you could put in the full path. You could go http://www.cit.ie/computing/colon/examples/ Similarly with an image, if you just put in soldier.jpg, it will look for the image called soldier.jpg in the same place as where this page is. So if you do call an image like this, you must make sure to put the image file in the same folder as the web page. Alternatively, you can give the full path of the image on the web. You could say http://www.cit.ie/blah/blah/something/soldier.jpg. So you have those two options. The thing you're most likely to do, though, is you're most likely going to just give the image a name and have a copy of it locally and have it in the same place, the same folder as this page. Some people, if they have a lot of pages and a lot of images, they like to make a separate folder for all of the images and put that in the same folder as the pages. And then they might be saying something like src equals quote images/soldier.jpg. But I don't think you want to go there just yet. I think it's fine just to keep everything in the same folder. Now for the width and the height, you must specify those, and the browser will then display the image with those dimensions. The image itself may have other dimensions. The image itself might be, for example, 150 pixels wide and 350 pixels high. And so when the browser resizes the image, it might stretch it a little bit. If you take a tiny image, say 50 pixels by 50 pixels, and you stretch that up to 500 pixels by 500 pixels, it's going to look crap. Right? So you can adjust the size of the image dynamically in the browser when it comes, and you can display it at a different size from what it naturally is. But if you stretch it too much, it's going to look shabby. If you take an image that's 500 pixels by 500 pixels naturally, and you display it at 50 pixels by 50 pixels in the browser, it'll look fine. But that's not a good idea either, because you'll be getting visitors to your website to download a big huge image when a tiny one would have done. If you're taking an image that's 500 pixels by 500 pixels and displaying it at 50 by 50, it's 100 times bigger. You're making people download something 100 times bigger, roughly, than it needs to be. So it would make sense to take the 500 by 500 image, bring it into a program like Photoshop or something, and shrink it down and use that. So the size of the image on the web page doesn't need to be exactly the same size as the natural size of the image. But if you're pushing it too far in either direction, you're probably up to no good, one way or the other. So what I'd like you to do now is go to a web page, go to Google, find an image that you'd like. When you click on the image, you can probably say view image in full size or something like that, and that'll show you the actual image. then you can right click on the image and save it to your folder, the same folder with all the web pages in it, and include a link then to the image. Now, there's one problem though. The machines in this lab, they're set up so that the operating system will hide from you, it'll hide the extensions of known file types. Which is fine normally. If you have like a picture, christmasparty.jpg, and you want that in your machine, and you want to send it around or do things with it, you don't really care whether it's called christmasparty.jpg, christmasparty.jpeg, or christmasparty.png. You don't really care. But for coding the web page, you need to know the exact file name, including the extension. It's most likely excuse me. It's most likely .jpg, but just to make sure, you should right-click and get the info on the image, and see if you can, and you'll find the full file name there. Alternatively, you could drag and drop it into a browser, and the browser would probably give you the full name up top. For your machine at home, you should probably set it up so that it always shows you the full file name, including the extension of known file types. Because that'll make your life easier. Okay, any questions? Okay, so give that a go, and I'll be around to make sure that's going okay.